studies, we found that racial discrimination was a key factor limiting the ACB communities from accessing healthcare services. We also identified the issue of unemployment. For instance, our statistics shows that 12.2% of those who tested HIV positive were unemployed, indicating that unemployment may be a key factor in HIV vulnerability. Now, also looking at the issue of education, we found that 28.6% of those who tested positive to HIV had less than high school education. And also we considered several other factors. For instance, discrimination broadly impacted on HIV vulnerability, and stigma was a very strong factor that impacted HIV vulnerability in the ACB communities. And all these are motivated by the society, the social factors, institutional factors that heighten discrimination and stigma against ACB community members.
The stigmatization around the HIV itself is so huge that they don't want to even go and get tested, because if they go to seek for testing, oh, you already have HIV, otherwise, or you're already having sex, well, otherwise you want to go for testing, you know. Now, of course, people having sex, we are human beings, this is the reality of life. The first thing is the stigma around HIV, because when you talk about HIV, everything people think about, the first thing is sex, but it's not true. Like I said, anyone can contract HIV. As far as we have a blood and we are alive, we can contract HIV. The first thing I can say to people, you know, just go and get tested, because today HIV is a manageable illness. You know, you can contract it, you can go and get your treatment, and you live on your life. We have to fight the stigma. The stigma is that's what's killing people, it's not HIV.
In the province of Ontario, since most of the statistics are provincial based, 44% of women who have tested positive for HIV are from the African, Caribbean, and Black community. So that number is substantial. So that means in the work that I do, I prioritize ACB women and ACB gender diverse folks when we're doing programming, community-wide events, campaigns, etc. Folks really respond to culturally specific, culturally appropriate events, workshops, offerings. So one thing that we've done, and we've offered this 3 times, is our Hair, Mind, Body, and Soul event. And this is, we do in partnership with a variety of other folks, such as Co-Create, Somerset West Community Health Center, Ottawa Public Health, and other folks as well. So we're talking about health and wellness through something that's more specific to ACB folks. So having ACB folks facilitate these conversations on wellness shows that self-care and community care is something that is already ingrained in our community, and then letting folks know that, you know, if you need more support, if you have more questions, you can also reach out to these facilitators that we have had in these events. And that's something that I noticed, and having those larger conversations on wellness have also been really helpful to kind of, you know, bring in HIV prevention, sexual health education into that conversation, just because there is a lot of stigma in ACB communities when talking about HIV and sexual health more broadly. So when we're housing that in a larger conversation on self-care and a larger conversation on wellness, we've been finding that that is something that's been quite successful.
Lately, I feel like every day someone is new coming in to access the service, and that is a good. That means that 2 things: all people getting tested, and all people like unless come out, they don't scare anymore about like, the stigma that's going on. Just, you know, I just go and get my service that I want, because at the end of the day, it's about my life. It's not someone else's life. You know, it's great. You know.
So in other words, many people are aware of the services.
Yes, 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 because that's what we do. We do outreach. We go to the event and we try to always be present on the platform, multiple platform, to make ourselves visible. That is not just common to people living with HIV. It's mostly common to Black people. And that's what we're talking about. Systemic racism. As a Black person, that we are not treated in the same way when it comes to accessing any services. And that thing have to change. It's not going to change if we are not stand up and coming together to make it the end of that systemic racism. It's very important. Otherwise, we're going to continue year after year, decade after decade, fighting to access something that is our right. And because we are working, we are paying our taxes, there is no point that we cannot access services as everyone else. Unless the ACS study will give us something that we have to look at later, what is, like you're saying, what is the impact of HIV? What needs to be done, and the ACS study will look as someone as a whole, when it's come to healthcare, what needs to be done, what education, what needs to be done, when it's for housing, what needs to be done, And that is ACS study, because that is the first kind of study that targeting Black people in HIV. It's very important. The data collection and show us so many things that we know already, but at least now we have a scientific data that will support what you are saying.
What do these data suggest we need to be doing? So that is the challenge. Collecting data is one thing, but the next part is that it's not just an exercise in data collection. We have a particular vision, if you will, about what this data will do or what we can do with it, and we need to go there. So we want to use data to inform policy and programs, to strengthen the response, to make a more meaningful response to HIV among Black communities.
Some of the collective actions that can address HIV vulnerability in ACB communities can be summarized based on the findings into collective resilience of the ACB community and also policy interventions. The collective resilience in this case can be leveraged on to address issues of critical HIV literacy through intergenerational dialogue among all ages of ACB communities coming together to address issues around HIV knowledge, how to reduce stigma related to HIV in ACB communities, using various platforms and approaches. This intergenerational dialogue has been used in many parts of the world, like in the United States, in Africa, and even in South America, to address HIV vulnerability. In terms of policy interventions, policies can be directed towards advocating for a guaranteed access to HIV treatment and care among people living with HIV, and also routine HIV check and counseling can be promoted through policies so that people who are vulnerable to HIV can constantly have access to information to protect them against vulnerability to HIV.
I would say that this study, even though it was a struggle to get started to design it the way we want to design the study to make sure there's something giving back to community, it went well because in the two cities in Toronto and Ottawa, we were able to survey 1,380 people, men and women. So I would call that a good response for two cities in the country.